Hi folks, I'm Bob Wood, the secretary of this wonderful outfit, and also the secretary of the North Atlanta Rail Barons. We've got just a couple of quick things before we introduce our guest speaker. I published in the email to all of you that you should have gotten the schedule for the remainder of the year. Did everybody get that? Okay. Has everybody signed the sign-in sheet tonight? Okay, that's good. There's one other thing that I wanted to add to all of that. We now have a YouTube site that we're trying to post all of the clinics to, but it takes a little while to get them edited, and then with the slow internet speed that I've got, it takes a while to upload a 2-hour video, something like 12 hours to do an upload to YouTube, and then they may or may not get it right. But anyway, so we'll start. We've got 2 videos up already. We've got Jim's clinic from 2 months ago on upgrading your freight cars, and the clinic that David did, and that was an excellent clinic on weathering. And if you haven't seen that, that's worth watching. He covers an awful lot of stuff and does some wonderful things to one of Mark Bridgewater's cars. So he was wonderful about that. Tonight, I am so glad to have this fellow to speak to us because he's been a member of the North Atlanta Rail Barons before. He left us, went out and did missionary work somewhere else, and now he's come back to us, and he's doing some great work on the railroads that we're working on. Seems like the Rail Barons always have about 4 or 5 railroads that we're building, and Darrin is a big part of all of that. And of course, he brought David back up from South Georgia, and now we've got both of them. So, pardon?
I said darn. 2 Godwins in one space.
Oh, man. But at any rate, we're glad to have both of them back. Darrin, as I said in the email, just from watching him work, I know his motto has to be, anything less than perfect is not good enough. So what you're going to see tonight is definitely going to be worthwhile. And I can say that without even knowing what he's going to do. And in talking to David Tuesday night, I asked him if he was going to be part of the program. He said, well, sometimes the older brother has to straighten out the younger brother. So anyway, so we're in for a surprise and a treat here. These 2 guys both know what they're doing in laying track. And this is probably the most important thing that you'll have to do in your layout. Okay, guys, it's yours.
I'd like to start off and thank y'all for showing up and being here tonight, and I hope y'all all get something out of this. I'm going to try to cover the things that will be mainly pertaining to everybody here, so I'm going to take a quick survey here in a little bit to find out where everybody's at, to kind of focus the class clinic here on. As Bob said, this is my other brother, David. We've been doing trains since we were little. From a 4x8 to a 6x10, and then I've built roughly about 20 layouts over the years. Mine, not mine, helping other people out. One of the layouts I helped out with was a window display for a train layout or a train display in one of the store fronts at the Marietta Square for holiday. It was a snow scene on top of that. So I've helped out with a lot of different types of railroads and that sort of thing. So just doing track work is fundamental. It's the foundation of your layout. It's just as important as your bench work. Get your bench work squared up and level and strong to where you don't have to build it like concrete foundation, but it needs to be stable. And then when you start laying your track, you need to have your track work where it is where it needs to be, because you don't want to have company come over and watch your trains and, oh, it always derails there. No, no. So in order to prevent that, if you know the keys and tips to look for when you're laying track, you'll know how to prevent those and head those off before you ever get that far down the road. Sometimes it's cars, if they're not weighted right, or odd thing of the truck's not toggling correctly. But most time, if all your cars are in good working condition, they'll be just fine on track work that's done right. So we're going to start off. Let's kind of take a survey here, just a show of hands. Who has a layout right now that they're working on? Okay.
It's not mine.
I mean, as far as your layout, your personal layout. So, and just as far as that goes, is all the track work done? Are you still working on track work, or are you beginning track work? Are you at the beginning stages of it? Okay. Halfway through the track work? Most of your track work's done except for a few spurs and stuff?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just imagining it.
There's a lot of things, that I'm gonna hit on these here just real quick. Y'all have already got the track, most track work done. This book right here, and a lot of these books that I have up here, are great books for references when if you want to design and build a layout, or go back and tweak your own layout to maybe fit something that you wanted to add in or whatever. But
In that one there,
well,
the yellow one, I'm in it. Somewhere.
this one,
Is that the first edition?
I don't know, but
Were you in it? Oh.
But in here, this booklet here is real. If you can find one of these, and I don't even know if they're still I think they're still producing these. But if you can find one of these, pick it up. It's a good read. It gives you a lot of good information on the different types of railroad operations for branch lines and then main lines. It goes over basically loading and unloading passengers and stuff like that for passenger service. I didn't mark the page in here, but
Is that another callback book?
yes.
Okay.
But when you're ready to get out of toy trains and into real operations, how real trains function, operate.
Yeah, we got that here.
Yeah, they give you all the curve radiuses and all this kind of stuff, and it even gives you here, gives you the calculations if you're going to do it up and over, the radius of your curve, and how much tension it's actually going to be putting on your train, converting over from not just a straight grade, but now you've got it in a curve, so you're going to create a bind. So now it's going to cause more stress on your locomotives to try to pull that same train up the grade and a curve. So there's a lot of good information in here. I've read this several times, and over the years, I've forgotten a lot of it. I had to go back and refer to it again. But that's the actual original edition right here. Then there's trestles and bridges. These are pretty much kind of like the Western style railroads, but this pretty much universal for all of the bridge building and everything that you want to do, all the different types of bridges and trestles and bents and everything. They're good books. So that's the literature. If you're doing track work, there's different ways to do track work. There's some people who run just a loop. And then there's some people who have switches out the yin-yang for doing switching operations. Sometimes it's just a section, a shelf layout that's got just switches on it, and that's all it's for, is switching. So, and that's the beautiful thing about this hobby. You can go with any direction you want to. With that being said, we're going to focus on actually trying to lay track and show you kind of some tips and things of the way I do things. everybody's got their own methods. I'm old school. I like doing the nailing of the track. I have more control over it that way. And I also like putting it on plywood tabletops or supported road bed with risers and things like that to nail my track down to. Because then when you go back and you start adding turnouts and start putting ground throws on them, if you're doing the round caboose industry roundhouse or caboose industry ground throws, they need to be anchored down, and you can't do that with foam. Glue, it can just peel off, you know, that don't really set well with me. I like it there. So I like nailing stuff down. Manufactured turnouts, there's all kind of manufactured turnouts. Here's a Walther's turnout number 6. These, what's the current price of these right now?
$25, depending on, 45 depending on the size.
$45 for number 6?
Yeah.
Starting.
About
Starting.
25 and 30, somewhere in there.
Okay. Everything's gone up. Okay.
Well, now, if you're an NMRA member, you come to Hobbytown, you get a 10% discount.
Okay. Thank you. The case in point is that these still do get expensive if you're doing a large layout and you're putting several of these down. When we were working on designing his layout, and drawing lines on a sheet of paper is cheap and easy, and you can build a hell of a layout on paper. And when you got, what, 70 some odd switches on your layout?
Yeah.
So I talked my brother into, I bent his arm, and I talked to him. I already had this in my possession, which was the Fast Tracks turnouts. I don't know if y'all are familiar with these, but with these jigs right here, you can build a left or right hand turnout. And if you can model, this is not that difficult in the grand scheme of things. Fast Tracks puts out, I think it's a 12-part video, 12-step video on this to show you step by step how to build these. By the time you buy a set from them, the jig, your sanding blocks or your filing blocks to file your nose or your points down here with, by the time you build 10 turnouts, you've paid for 10 of these. So everyone after that gets cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, because now all you're doing is just buying the rail and the
Ties, PC ties.
yeah, PC ties. So I'm a big advocate of those, and I've got number 6s and number 4s.
And the club has some of those,
I think they have the number
different
6
bar.
left and right. I don't know about the number 4s, but let me show you that.
This,
Yeah.
And also,
Yeah.
be sure to mention, Darrin, that the building your jigs, like with the jigs, also counts for your achievement program points.
Okay.
For your layout building.
yeah. So there's multiple perks for doing your own turnouts, and you build. I'm not sure of all the stats on all that, but if you're building a layout or adding to, or you're not finished quite yet, you can build some of these, borrow the jigs from NMR, the NMRA here,
Yeah.
and use the jigs and build some of these and get a certificate for hand laying track.
Yep.
So this is a number 6, and once I threw my brother off in the deep end of the pool on this.
And I swam for the edge.
He was a little nervous about it. I said, look, it'll be a lot cheaper this way. So let's focus on doing that. And then that way, I said, just take it a step at a time. Don't get in a hurry with it. Just walk through it, do it, learn all the ins and outs about it. It doesn't matter if it takes you 8 hours to build one turnout. Speed will come after you learn the process, just like anything else. So once you get going on it, and after a while, you can build 2 turnouts for about the same time frame as you do one, because you can do them systematically back to back and produce 2 of them within about an hour or so, an hour and a half for 2 turnouts.
No, I can build about 2 a day. And that's barring lunch interruptions, phone calls, life.
Awesome, Bob.
But now, let it be known that Fast Tracks does sell the PC boards, and you get about 12, I think, and they're all the same length. Well, you can see that none of those are the same length. So when you get the 12 or whatever, and you use their PC ties and you get all this waste, and it comes from Canada, right?
Yeah.
They're foreign, because now I guess there's their tariff. So Clover House sells these, what is that, 12 inches or so PC board, and I'll put this and cut it to length, and I'll have very, very little waste, because I'll start cutting my long pieces, and when I get down to the end, I'll start, well, I can get that for the next piece and just minimize my waste. But that's the, and then hand me that box over there, that long box, yeah. And then Northeastern Scale Lumber, I buy the 24-inch sticks of ties, and I'll stain them, and then I'll use those for that. And again, I'll start off with my long ties, 17.5 footers, work my way down. When I get down to here, I can get 2 8.5 footers out of that and not have any waste. So,
He's got a drawing on above his workbench with 2 sticks and shows you where to cut them for get the maximum use out of all the rail with very little waste.
That's all efficiency.
Well, when you're building 70 of them, you don't want to have a lot of waste left over.
But the savings in dollars alone over buying a commercial turnout.
Yes.
Whoa, now there's the money.
And then curved turnouts are the same way. You can hand build these as well. Once you've built several of these, that's what I'm trying to get him to do, is build a curved turnout. He's still a little gun shy about that, but
in Fast Tracks, if you go to their website, they've got the templates to print on paper. And you just, if you want to do that on the layout, you just put your paper down, put your ties in place, and put your rails in place with your gauges, and just follow the paper.
so, put this
So
on
let me
quick.
show while we're, so you saw on that one, you just saw the skeleton of the turnout. That's just the skeleton. So then you take it out of the fixture, and then here's your paper template, and I made this, and I'll invert a piece of painter's tape about this wide, invert so the sticky side is up. Tape it down on both ends. Then I can lay, and I cut my cross ties and lay them on that sticky side up, and it holds the cross ties in place. And then here's my gate here for the throw bar. Now I put my glue on there, my glue on here. It's like contact glue. And then I just line it up and then put it in place, and it falls right on top of the cross ties. And then push it all down, lift it up, and then I go set it on a flat surface with a book, usually a Walther's catalog on top of it, and that will usually a hard copy book and then a Walther's catalog, and leave it overnight. And then, well, Dave, somebody asked me ask me why is this blank in here?
Why is that blank in there?
I'm glad you asked. Because when I'm doing the glue, you're getting real close down here to the points that have to go back and forth. If you get glue in there, you're
done.
You're done. So I leave that off. So when I get ready to put this in, I'll go ahead and mount my turnout in place. Then I'll come back and add my cross ties in there and glue them in place with white glue to the cork. Now then everything's filled out.
And once you've used these as opposed to store-bought, you will love these. They just run smooth as silk. If you take your time and build them right, you don't get y'all all ran the Atlas turnouts, right?
Yeah.
And it goes clunk, clunk, when it goes over the frog. Well, these don't do that.
There's a truck down there.
Yeah.
Do the wheel set.
Right here.
Okay.
These don't do that. I mean, they're just as smooth as silk when you run it over it. I mean, it's like a continuous rail. There is no bumping going on. So, and that is smoother operations, less chance for derailment. And you'll have enjoyment. Yeah, if y'all want to take a look at this and critique it if you want to. Laying track. There's different ways, things you can do too for your cork that we have here. And I'm sure everybody uses a Midwest cork or something, some facsimile thereof. If you're into using the magnetic uncouplers for the KDs, and you like to do the uncoupling and then using the delayed action and then shoving your cars over into the industries and then just pull away from it, that has its advantages and disadvantages. Advantages is the operation aspect of itself, but if you do the prototype look where you are dropping track down off of the main line, because if you look at the main line is going to be high, and even your siding is going to be a little bit lower. I use N-scale track or N-scale road bed for the sidings, and then down to the hard sub road bed itself for everything else, yards, industries, and everything else. Well, to make that transition, you're going to be going downhill to mainly, not necessarily so much your yards, but mainly like for your industries and things. Well, if you're using the delayed uncoupling, your car is going to roll away from you when you go back to it. So it's one of those balancing acts. Do you want to use and have it look prototype with the drops? It's not real noticeable, but if you know it's there, you see it. So it's that give and take. What do you want out of your layout? Do you just leave it all on cork and just use the KD's uncoupler because it just makes operations a little easier and everything for everybody? That's fine. With doing the drop down, it's not that difficult. You can use some cardboard. And when I mean cardboard, I mean like thin cardboard that's not corrugated.
Cardstock.
Yeah, cardstock type stuff. And you can use thin styrene too. Cut this into strips just wide enough for your track and do stair step with it. And then when you get your stair step right, and you need to go out probably about, coming off of the main line of HO cork, you need to come out about 14 inches. That way it gives you a nice smooth transition. And then when you build your stair step, flip it upside down so you got your smallest piece here and your longest piece on top, and that'll also help smooth out the stair stepping with it. And you can do that, and I've done that several times. I did that on Jim's layout over there where his industry, not industry, but where his engine facility is. Hadn't had a better problem with derailments or nothing, and you can see the train kind of pitch down a little bit as it goes down into the industry or the facility there. And it's just aesthetics, what you want. As far as the actual track work it goes, we got several pieces here. We're going to do some soldering here and kind of show you my techniques of doing the soldering. We can also do a little bit of cutting here, and for doing the cork road bed, when you split this in half, and it gives you two sides. One side's going to be good because that's the cut side, and the other side's going to have that ridge on the top where it was attached there. So when you get through putting this down, you can do it before, but it's easier after you get it nailed in place. And that is this is like some 60 grit sandpaper, or if you got some of those sanding blocks, here's your sanding block right here. And you can just massage that edge right there where it hangs off the side there to get you that beveled edge back. Because if you don't, you're gonna have some gaps there where that ledge comes out over your angled side there. So when you go to start putting in your ballast and stuff, you're gonna start having problems. It's not gonna look as pretty. So to smooth it all up, and once you get all that sanded in, You can paint it if you want to, so that way it's like a gray paint to blend in with your ballast. And if you say something?
Yeah. In my experience, these two, you would think they're equal halves. They're not equal halves. If you put this up to that, it's not exactly the same. So when I'm separating them, I'll mark a front and a rear, just an F and an R. So this is the side to the aisle, to the viewer. This is the away side that I'm gonna cut, and I'll take a utility knife and I'll just run along, and I can just like peeling an apple. Usually I can get it in one long string. I can take off that excess, but just really knowing that they're not equal. So if you're coming up with uneven pieces and you think you can swap it around, yes, it's going to get covered up with ballast in the future, but it just makes it easy. I'll just put an F and an R on mine, and I know that this here goes to the viewer, to the working side, and this here goes to the away side towards the skyboard or to the background.
And if you do the other side in comparison, like what he's talking about, if you get them reversed, where what he was marking as the front, and this is the front here, is now on the back side.
If you get a front and a rear,
Yeah, it's not going to be, you're going to get these big shelf areas where the cork doesn't line up
it's
exactly
not
right.
50-50.
Yeah, that's if you're keeping your center line split down the center. You'll have a jog of cork because the sizes are different.
You stagger the two, so.
No, we would
Yeah,
always put the one that peels
Right,
off
but I mean,
clean.
he's not the one up against
You
the
can
other.
stagger it,
Right.
and usually mine come out staggered anyway. Once you get going to get into a curve, it's going to start staggering anyway, all on its own.
Yeah, I don't try to keep them.
Now, on a straight section, you don't have to stagger, but in a curve, it helps to stagger.
Okay.
And then a curve, I will usually lay the outside edge first so I can follow my line, and then I can just come back with the inside and just push it up next to the outside. That way you're not trying to look over it to find your line.
When you lay in cork, especially on curves, if you've got your line drawn out, and it doesn't matter what radius it is, and this goes for all radiuses. I've seen where if the line is like this, and you start over here on this end, they nail, they move it over here, they nail, then they move it over here, they nail. Well, then you get all these little straight sections because that cork's gonna be straight. What you need to do is take your cork and flex it to take that bend. Then nail it at the ends, then come back and hold that down and nail it in place. So that way your cork has got that bow to it.
It's
all
got
the way
a
around.
natural flow.
Yeah, it's got a natural
It just
flow to
falls
it.
naturally where it's supposed to be.
Same thing with your track. When you're using flex track, arc it and then lay it down, or put it on there and then arc it in place, then tack it down. But don't do one bend, nail, bend, nail, bend, nail. Don't do that, because that's going to give you that jagged curve all the way around. It's going to be a bunch of straight sections, if you will, with a bend in between each one.
And your locomotives and rail cars will not like that.
No, they don't like that. Speaking of curves, especially if you're running longer locomotives and longer passenger cars and anything really over 50 foot, you need to take into account what we call
Easement.
a transition or an easement of some sorts. And basically what you're doing is whatever curve radius you're doing, say it's 30-inch radius curve. Well, you don't want to go straight to a 30-inch radius curve. You want to do an easement into that curve and be a 36 or a 48 or whatever you could squeeze in there, to where, just like when you're driving in the road, you don't automatically go like that and make the turn. You ease into it, so you're changing your radius until you get to the radius you need. Same thing with your trains. They're taking that and transitioning from straight into the curve you need. if you're looking at passenger cars and the way they behave and the way they'll float around that curve and swing out, that will help them, because then that way you're taking the way that they rotate around that curve. The one that's on the straightaway is still going to be sticking out straight, and the one that's trying to curve is not going to be trying to push out on that one, as opposed to a larger radius to initiate into a curve. They both kind of start curving at the same time, and it helps the whole train take that curve a whole lot easier. So then they're back again, you'll have less derailments.
And an easement's easy. If this is your straight track and your radius is, your 30-inch radius is out here, you just come down a ½ inch below this center line, just a ½ inch. So your 30-inch is down here at ½ inch low.
If you're going this way.
If you're going this way, and then so now you've got your circle.
Just take your radius and drop it down,
Yeah.
so that way you,
So now
this section right
you
here
take
is,
this track and you just take it and match that, and you this is 30 out here, this is your tangent, and this is something in between right here. There's your transition right there. Just let the track do it by itself. The track or the cork can help you. When you lay your cork will just naturally find that middle Goldilocks spot.
if you're not doing the nail move. Let's see. And curves, tangents. We use code 83, and that's what a lot of people use. On your curves, before we get off too far, on your curves, on the flex track, you've got one rail that slides and one rail that's stationary. When you do your curves, always put your extension, your floating rail, the one that slides, on the inside. Reason being is that way, if you do it the other way, you've stretched out, your ties get on the outside, they get a little further spacing, but you're always going to be short on your rail. If you do it where the slide track is on the inside, you've soldered it on one side, and as you come around, you just nip this off and you put another piece on. Nip that off, put another piece on. You're not fighting anything. As far as your rail joints being parallel with each other or staggered, they don't have to be parallel, they don't have to be staggered. If you do good track work, it doesn't matter. The train's not going to know the difference. The biggest thing you just want to make sure of is that they stay in gauge. And
Hand me one of those utility knives down there.
yeah,
Flex track
I
and
saw
curves.
it earlier. Where'd you go?
I vote to keep your joints parallel. That way, take it to the extreme. Your joints are staggered in a curve. That's the worst possible space. So now you can't have cross ties with spikes to keep it engaged for, I don't know, 5 or 6 cross ties. And that's a joint. So now you've got a Murphy moment just waiting for it to get out of gauge, a kink, anything to squeeze the flange out of the track. And so I prefer to keep them parallel. And furthermore, I don't know if you want to get a close up of this. I'm gonna go ahead and remove this. Of course, for the flex track, you almost always have to remove the end tie. And I'll wait for the camera so y'all can see. This is worth the price of admission right here. So on one side, I call them skips and solids. This side here, hey, can you see it on, what I have to turn the monitor?
If they can, they're better at than us. The TV's off. We don't know why.
All right. I'll paint a visual picture. All right, so this side here is the solids. There's no gaps. It's just one solid piece of plastic, and this is going to be the rail that's fixed. Down here you have the skips. You have gaps and skips in here. So what I'll do is, across from a skip, I'll come over here to a solid and I'll cut out So I have two skips parallel to each other. That allows me to slide the cross ties back.
Or forward.
Yeah. So now I've got all this extension out here. And then I'll take the moto tool. If you think these ties are clean out of the box, you take a moto tool with a brush on it and then hit all four sides. You get it to a mirror finish. Now it's ready for solder. That's a good electrical. That's as good as it's going to get.
And this is just like a little wire brush
Yeah.
for a Dremel tool
Yeah,
or a
you,
motor tool.
you just hit the ends, hit that end, flip it over, hit that side and that side. And then when you've got this cut and trimmed, this saves this from melting while you're soldering. If you're having a bad solder day, they won't melt.
Because you pushed them back far enough away from everything.
So now you can play with it as much as you want, get it soldered, get it bent, however you want. And then once it's in place, you slide your cross ties back up to the joiner, tack it down, and you're good to go.
And sliding your cross ties back up helps keep everything back engaged again, because now you've got that support.
You've got cross ties with spikes right up to the rail joiner. The only place that don't have spikes is the joiner. So everything else is in tight and engaged, and you won't have any problems with kinking or anything else.
You create space under the rail for the joiners, so it doesn't.
Well, I always have to remove that one tie on the end. That's a given. And if you remove the other tie on the other end, that's your space for your rail joiner.
And I would strongly suggest, if you, after doing several bits of track work and you have all these ties and stuff and everything, me personally, don't use those to slide back underneath the rail joiner. For one, the rail joiner takes up space underneath that rail now. And you've got all these little cross tie, or the spike hubs on there.
And tie plates.
And tie plates. You slide that back underneath there, it's gonna push that joint up. So now you got a bump in your track. I've always gone and gotten styrene, the same thickness, or maybe a little bit thinner. If it's a little bit thinner, that's fine, of what your cross ties are. Sticks like this that you buy, paint them black, stick them in there, cut them to length, or you can sit there and get them put them on a chopper and just cut a bunch of them out, and then when you get ready, you go in there and just slide them in there and glue them down with some zap, and you're good to go.
Or if you got a 24-inch stick, go to your chopper and just go 8.5 foot, 8.5 foot, 8.5 foot, 8.5
The scale. Yeah, 8.5 foot. So that way you're not messing your joint up by trying to use stuff like that. And for the most part, getting the styrene strips is not that expensive to go along and do all your little joints and stuff.
One of the things
It's well worth it not to have
With
derailments,
the
especially
curve-
in curves.
Yeah, with the curve, if you're gonna do a flex track in a curve, this is what Dave does. Go ahead and get it halfway formed, get it flexed. So now when you lay it down, it's already helping you. It's not
It
fighting
wants to
you.
lay.
It's not
in a
fighting
curve.
you.
Whose track is this thing?
That's Atlas, isn't it?
Atlas, flex track.
Yeah. There's Atlas, of course, there's different types of brand names out there. There's Atlas, and then there's Pico and Microengineering. And they all have their pros and cons. I've always liked using Atlas. For one, this is what I'm used to. But I've always liked it too, because you can play with it like this and curve it, and it'll self-curve itself. You start using microengineering and you have to adjust it, because when you do curve it, it'll stay that way. But it's not got the slack in it to where it'll self move around.
Especially for easements, what we were talking about.
Yeah. So trying to use the microengineering type track. And the spike heads are real small. They're very prototypical looking. It's very nice looking, but it doesn't have the structural strength
Well,
of
Atlas has come a long way with their spine.
yeah. They're smaller now than what they used to be. They're not the big bulky like Code 100 that we had back in the 70s. So this is what my preference of using Atlas. That's what I've liked. And of course, Code 83 looks a lot better than Code 100 does. Done a little bit of Code 70. I've done a little bit of hand laying track. That's tedious. Nice looking, but
It's hard to tell at a distance.
it's hard to tell in a distance, and it takes up a lot of time, and the overall appearance is not that much of a difference for me personally to justify all that time putting into it and all that work, because you lay one rail at a time and you have some needle nose pliers that you use to put the spikes in. You put one spike in, five cross ties up.
Bottom, into their blue handle,
Yeah,
yep,
here.
into the left is the
And you
spikes.
use two spikes for every one you
And
get.
these are grooved at the top with like a little T groove. You got it across that way and one coming down. So this would be for your spike coming down, and then the crossbar would be for your head. So you would grab your spike head like a nail and then just push it down in your, hopefully, homosoap, because that holds the best.
Yep.
And that's messy with all the paper fibers and everything else, because this is nothing more than compressed paper. And it makes a big mess. You thought foam made a big mess? So, and you're doing every fifth cross tie with a spike on both sides. That's just one rail. Then you gotta come back and then you use the track gauges that you can set down to hold that other rail in place to keep it engaged, and you spike it opposite from the one you just spiked. That's a lot of work for a 3-foot section. You could spend 2 hours doing for a 3-foot section. So for me, the trade-off is, let's get trains up and running. By the time you come back and weather this and put the ballast down, it's good for me. But like I said, everybody's got their, some people do that as therapy. If you're building a big basement layout, I would not want a hand lay track on all of it. But if you're doing a small diorama or even a 4x8 or something like that, and you want a hand lay track on all that, go ahead. That's fine. It's just one of those things to me that once it gets to be such a big project, you don't want to do it anymore for that whole purpose of just time consuming, and to me it's very strenuous. But let's see, we got this here. On these here, you have to drill out the holes for your nail heads or for your nails to go through, and we got. And you got several different drill bits. This is just a little small pin vise for drills. You flip the track over. They've already got the dimples in here of where the nail holes will be. And you can just stick the drill in there, a couple of turns, and it's through. When you get through doing all that, when you've gone through, you're gonna have some of that plastic burr where it came through. If you drive a nail in there, your nail's not going to be flush before it starts pushing that cross tie down. And then your cross tie is going to do this. You don't want to do that, because now when you do this, you're pulling those rails in and you're throwing the gauge out. So stick a knife and you can just trim that off to where it's nice and flush again. Then you got plenty of room for your nail to go all the way down and flush out.
Hey, Darrin, I think Atlas is the only company that's still doing nail holes. You know,
Okay.
Walther's.
No nail holes?
Eco
Okay.
doesn't have it.
Say, I don't deal with all of them, so yeah.
Another perk for Atlas.
Yeah, another perk for Atlas. Now, there's different ways of putting down your track. Like I said, I'm old school. I do nails because I've designed and all my years of building layouts and all that. You have a design, it looks good. You put it down, it looks good, but when it comes time to operation, it's not that it doesn't operate well, it's that the functionality of it, of where the placements are not right. This switch is not in the right place. It needs to be moved back about 4 inches so I can have this much room to do this with. If I've just nailed everything down, I can come along, pull my nails up, rearrange it, cut, track, or whatever, and put back in place and fix it. If it's glued down, well, now I've got a whole nother ball of wax to deal with. have to saturate it, and then you get out, and especially after you've ballasted, that makes a real big chore then. So run your track work. Once you get your track work down, run your trains constantly. Try to make it derail. Find the problems with it so you can fix it before you ballast. Because once you've ballasted and put the glue down, it's a real big headache to try to go back and fix later. Because then when you're trying to wet it down, get the ballast out, and that little bit of ballast will be underneath your cross ties or stuck to the little bit, one or two pieces here and there, and now your track don't lay nice and flat on that cork road bed anymore. It wants to be up and down, and it may be here and there. So now your track looks like this going across that same spot where it was nice and flat. So just test, and it's a good excuse to run your trains.
Yeah. Run your long trains, your short trains, pull them
Push them.
in every direction, and then shove them, push them with the locomotive on the rear. All your cars, every kind of car you got, in both directions. Shove it this way, shove it that way.
If you got a car that's a little, that you know is kind of an oddball or doesn't perform as well as the others, if you got one that's kind of like that, put that on there. Don't immediately, because it jumps the track, don't think it's your track work. But at least you know that if your track work runs and you can run your most finicky car on it, then you're good to go. Because everything else is going to track and handle smoothly above and beyond. I had a locomotive that I had, and it had one of the Details West plows I put on the front, which was the metal plows. Well, I had to file it a little bit because of the way it hung, but anyway, I filed it off smooth and got it where it was right. Well, it showed up a lot of bad track and my grade changes, because when the track went up, it would short. So, come back in, and I took cardboard and some styrene and some thin styrene, and where it transitioned, built it up and smoothed out that bend to where it'd be a nice transition. So then that way you don't have that issue where nothing's extreme. Same thing when you're doing, especially with steam locomotives. If you're running steam locomotives and long steam locomotives, your transitions need to be smooth, because that steam locomotive is not like a diesel. You got the four axles all together on one frame. They're not flexing, they're not moving around, they are hard set. So when you go into a transition from level to grade, you've got that angle, you're gonna have two wheels off the track. So now you've lost traction effort. We're not even gonna get into rubber tires and that kind of stuff. Same thing with coming off the grade. If you're coming over, you don't want the locomotive to do one of those numbers. So always make your transition smooth. And for grades can be different depending on what kind of railroad you're building. 2% would be pretty extreme for, well, it's an average for most model railroad layouts, and that's about as high as you want to go. Now, if you're doing a short line, short trains, mountainous area where you're doing shays and climaxes and hustlers and that kind of stuff, then they can take the steeper grades and that sort of thing. But you still want to make your transition smooth.
Darrin rebuilt Saluda grade.
All by himself he did.
Not the real Saluda grade. But yeah, it's just some of the things that I saw that I didn't think were smooth. And layouts themselves, you know, if I'm part of the layout, I want y'all to be happy with what you got when you go to run it, you know. That, hey, this is a nice operation here, that these trains run smooth, you know, there's no derailments, whether it be because of a turnout or because of a grade or because of a curve or whatever the track work is. If the train derails, it's not going to be because of track work. It's going to be something's wrong with the locomotive or the cars or whatever's not being weighted right or something. So that just, if you can nail it all down to where you have eliminated all possibilities of derailments with your track work. Then when you do have a derailment, you notice the car, you're not trying to, less gremlins in the system, I guess, to try to go figure out. So if you know it's a car, you just take that car off and go to the workshop with it and tear it down and see what's wrong with it. Whether you put it on a wheel set gauge or whatever to see if something's wrong that way. The soldering of tech, we'll solder some here in a little bit and I'll show you how I do it. We've got several pieces here we're going to put together or have available to put together. Doing curves, when we're soldering curves, of course we always talked about the extension here being on the inside. When you're doing a curve, and of course usually one piece of flake strike is not going to be all you need for a curve. When you get into the curve and you're going to add another piece to this, if you're doing, just say for all practical purposes of this, say we're doing an industrial area and we got a 15-inch radius curve or an 18-inch radius curve or whatever, and you get into the curve, don't nail your track all the way around to where you get to where you need to put your next track on. Leave that track straight, the end of it. Then prepare this. You can take cut off a few more, a tie or so here on the end, cut, snip, put your next piece on, solder it like what we were talking about earlier, in a straight line. Then when you flex it, you're flexing that straight joint just like the rest of the track, so it will continue that nice curve that you have going on. You don't have track that's soldered like this. It's like this, and then you bend it like the rail, and it'll give you a nice continuous bend, and your trains won't ever even know it's there. I've seen a lot of that going on, and if you have to come back and do a repair, go back in your curve and take some nails out where that joint is on both sides, and then push that in to give you that straight section to solder to. And then once you get it where it solidifies, then you relax it and it'll go back into that gentle curve again. If you're replacing, whether it be a turnout or whatever the case may be, if you're using a curved turnout in the middle of a curve, sometimes you just have to kind of fiddle with it a little bit, and sometimes you have to, I've gone as far as taking the curve and added some extra nails on the side and made it straighten out to give me that straight section on the end, rather than just letting it float and hang there. I had to force that straightness into it. Soldered it, and then pull the nails back out, and then follow my line of where I was going with it. There's a lot of tools that can be used for laying track with. You don't have to have them all, but they help. I'm a big component of tools. It's amazing what you can do when you got the right tools. First time, in my experience, or first time, I just got this here the other day because I had to have one to do some of the small light wiring I was doing. He had one that we were doing at his layout, and that just really, like, that was the cat's meow. This is a variable speed, or variable temp, and this is just a variable temperature soldering iron that if you've got brass locomotives, this is how they put them together. Not this particular one, but they'll use a variable. And they'll start off hot, and as they go along, they get colder and colder and colder with their soldering. So that way, when they're soldering next to another solder joint, this one that you're doing now is cold compared to what you just had, so it's not going to come undone while they're soldering the next joint. So it's a constant bring down. This is from 392 to 896, but I'm finding that probably around 750 to 800 is a good operating temperature for track work.
Say that again.
Around 750 to 800 degrees.
Work fast.
I just
Fast and hot.
I just do 800. Just and this, when you start doing your DCC boards, your smaller wire, your 28 and 30 gauge wire, you can dial it down to 660, 700. And if you're working with circuit boards, the pads, this would come in handy for that too. So it's a dual purpose. It's for heavy working with rail. It's a large surface when you're talking this. And then the decoder boards and small 30 gauge wire, you want to dial the heat down a little bit so you don't hit the components on the board.
Just be careful of your tip. Of course, like anything, it does get hot. Keep your tip clean. Keep the tip tinned. If you're soldering wires, and it doesn't matter if it's wire to wire, wire to rod, wire to rail, tin your wires. You know, I'm sure y'all know about all that. Tinning your wires, put a little bit of solder on there, just kind of like pre-soldering, if you will. And that makes it a whole lot easier when you go to stick that wire on the side of that rail. It's already ready to go. Just basically heat it up and it's there.
When you've got a new tip, give it a wrap in your solder. Give it a wrap. Then turn it on and let it melt, and just keep rolling it in that new tin. That way, don't just start going to work with it. It needs to be tinned the tip first. I learned that a long time ago.
And that needs to be done.
With
That
a
needs to
new
be done.
tip, it needs to be tinned.
Yeah. And then that needs to be done too periodically over a period of time of using it. Because when you're sticking it in the abrasion here for cleaning it, it will eventually rub it off. So you'll need to retin it periodically. And it's just putting solder on it and letting it be good.
You doing that with rosin free or solder or solder with rosin?
Rosin. The rosin's going to burn off anyway. It doesn't hurt the thing. Do not use the acid.
Which solder?
60-40. Yeah.
I don't even know what this is.
Not silver or anything like that. Lower
The silver takes higher temp, and we're not into higher temp. And I mean, yeah. I think if you talk to people that do electronics, they have a high disregard for silver.
If you're
Just wash your hands when you get done with the lead and solder, and don't breathe the fumes. I got a little fan that blows when I'm doing the fast tracks. I'm doing a lot of soldering. I've got a little fan that keeps blowing across to keep those fumes from going in my face.
just for reference, I bought this unit here at Harbor Freight, $50. I couldn't walk away from that for what that is. And then they had a paste, a tinner, and this cleaner here for, I think that was a $20 package, I think, or something like that. And then I forget what this was, but by the time I bought everything that I needed to solder with, that was $100.
But you will get your money's worth over and over and over.
It's well worth it.
It will keep you from cussing. It might save you from going to hell. I don't know.
Does solder come like wire gauges or even 12 gauges thicker than 14 gauge? So does
I don't know if it's
solder-
engagement. They measured in like 16th and 32nds and in fractions of an inch is what I've seen.
This is 0.8 millimeter. It's also as 1/32. And that's the thin, small.
For what we're doing, that's
Thinner
good.
the better.
Yeah, you don't need that big, thick pencil size solder.
What was your question?
Yeah,
Okay.
I was gonna say, as a 0.6 is also.
Okay.
Well, this is a tangent, sort of, but I know for a lot of things that are sold in the EU, they've got to use the silver solder. And so for like DCC boards, I've heard you you should not mix silver and lead solder.
Well, we're not manufacturing.
And
If
so-
you're manufacturing, you've got to comply with all this stuff, yes. But in a home use, you can use the lead solder.
Don't they also drive on the wrong side of the road?
You have to put a California label on it.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah.
Let's do I'm thinking if we lay cork and you show them how you do a turnout, cut cork for a turnout, and I'll show them how I cut cork for a turnout. Would y'all like to see that?
Yeah.
Okay. 'Cause just laying cork for straight track and curves is not a problem. Turnouts, oh man, another turnout. What am I gonna do here? So we'll lay it down and you do a turnout at that end, and I'll do a turnout at this end. But we won't do it simultaneously. That way you do yours
maybe
first.
the best man win.
No, well, they can't watch two at the same time, so we'll tack it down, you do yours, and we'll do this camera.
Are we
And
sure
then
we
we
can
can-
get the?
Where's the
TV
turnout?
on at all?
Huh? You had it last.
I've handed it out.
But who's got the turnout that was going around?
I didn't see it.
They're not fast
Give me that straight line ruler right there, and we'll do a line down the center of this.
Did you try both of those remotes?
It was on.
Also too, real quick, doing large layouts, you get to be doing radiuses and sometimes your radiuses get to be rather large. And so this is what I use for my compass. It's a yardstick. I drill a hole at the 1 inch mark and then I measure out and I drill holes at all the other inch marks up here and renumber them because you're starting at 1. So you just take it, if you're doing a 24 inch radius curve, that would be at 25. So if you're doing a 24 inch radius curve, this is your pinpoint here for your center. Put your pencil in and shoo.
Darren's helping me with track, with bench work on mine. We made one of those. That's probably one of the best tools you could possibly have. I mean, making those lines and, you know, drilling the holes in there, it just made things a lot simpler.
If you do your hole, rather than being in the center like this one is, if you drill your hole for your screw mount right here over to one side, that, say this side right here is going to be the closest to that. So therefore, drawing a center line out from the center of your curve, you can use that one side to do your straight parallel or perpendicular cut. When you go to do like a helix,
Your sub-road
and you're
bed.
cutting out your sub-road bed, and you want those lines to be the same, you'd be surprised if you take it to extreme and see if you're using this piece and you had a hole in the center, how far off center you are when you come down here to cut and draw a line. You're that far off, and it gets to be really extreme when you start cutting out your sub-road bed plywood, that you put your pieces together to make a curve, but then your joints don't line up very well because your angles are off because you're so far off center from your pivot point. So if you can move this over, now you could come along here and put this and shave this down closer to these holes to get closer to your center point there to draw your cut lines.
You could cut a little V at
Yeah.
the increment spots.
So, but this is really handy, especially if you start trying to do separate sub-road bed rather than just one big sheet of plywood. If you're doing just the plywood support that's 4 inches wide to hold your track, and the rest of it's going to be drop and up and scenery, and you got it all up on risers, and you're cutting all that out, this is a really good handy tool to do that with, because then you can draw your center line, and you can draw your 2 inches on the inside of the track and 2 inches on the outside of the track to do your 4 inch width. You can do a 2 inch width if you want to, which will be wide enough to hold your cork and everything, and you can bring your road bed or your scenery right up to the edge of your road bed, and that also will allow you to drop you've seen where in some of the prototypes where you have the bows comes off their rock bed there, and it just goes straight down. There is no change in contour. It just comes off the cross ties, goes out about 1.5 feet or so, and then drops, and it's that same continuous grade all the way down. If you're doing only a 2-inch wide road bed, you can do that real easy. So it has its perks.
But Dave, how can I draw a radius if my 2 frames, and this is out in the air, and I don't have this is what Dave does. Use this, and you go to Hobby Lobby or a craft store and get the 24 or 36-inch craft paper on a roll, 6 foot of it or so. Take it home, lay it out, use this, draw your radiuses on it. Then I come back, let's say you cut a 24 and a 26. You cut the 24 and the 26, there's your ribbon. And then you go from, here's my tangent over here, my tangent over here. You take that ribbon, I like my ribbons to be about 4 inches, but you shove that up and lay it in place to see where this meets the 2 tangents. And then what am I gonna do? I'm gonna back off a 1/2 inch for my easement. But that's how you can use this to get your arcs on the craft paper. And then when I'm done with the craft paper, I can coil it up, put a clothespin on it. I didn't bring any of them tonight. But so this works if you've got a full sheet to rest on. If you're out here in the air, you can use the craft paper. Where's that 36-inch?
When I go to do, I've got a straight line here. This would be my main line or whatever it is, and this is the line that I'm putting my turnout on. I'll center my straight through section of the turnout, get that centered on my center line. Figure out where this needs to be this way, and once I've done that, I'll come back and I'll mark my throw bar. That way, that's my reference point. I always come back, put it right in, and it'll fall right back in place. And then you come along in here, it takes a little bit, you just draw the center lines there, in between the ties. And I mean, you just get it like really close. That'll be good enough. So I've got all these marked right here, so you can see that's my diverging track. And we'll take this.
Excuse me, gentlemen.
No.
There's part of the Red Sea there.
And we'll just do that's my diverging route right there.
There's another remote on the wall.
The TV's on, I just can't get the signal. Should we get it back in?
Is it input?
Yeah. Reboot.
If there was ever a night. You got JMLs to the second power tonight, squared.
And for right now, we're just gonna cut that.
Soundbar's on.
There's different ways you can lay cork for a turnout. And sometimes it's just preference, sometimes it's just whatever works for you. Sometimes it's
These
not.
track nails, you want cork nails.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Save those.
Yeah.
They're black. And you don't have to wait 4 hours for the glue to dry either.
Yeah.
If you
A
use
wham
con-
bam and we're done.
Yeah, if you use contact cement, it goes a lot faster.
Yes, it does.
Well, you have to wait for the contact cement to air out and dry.
Yeah, but it don't
It's 2 schools of thought. Everybody has, there's an alternate plan. Yeah.
I got a question.
Answer.
If you lay it down in the wrong place with contact cement, how hard is it to pull back up?
It is. It is.
Depends on where you got your real sharp putty knife.
So the.
How long does it take you to pull it all up and get it all squared away to redo it?
Well, the first thing is.
I'm not knocking, I'm just throwing out,
First thing
options.
is I'll make sure that I've got Mark Bridgewater in this one.
Yeah.
I think he uses convex cement.
No, he uses.
Where's that 3-foot ruler at?
That one?
No, well, not, that's the metal one. And a pen, I'll go ahead and draw mine out. All right.
Check both ends first and then the center.
I did on this, just for what it was. Normally, if I'm laying a long piece, you know, this would be already laid out and just be running through, and I'll just pull just a little bit of tension on it, not much, just enough to kind of keep it where it's taut and straight.
Buckle up, yeah.
Yeah. Make sure your joints too, from your pieces of plywood to pieces of plywood, that they're the same height. You don't want any of that. If you do, you either need to do some sanding on one side or building up of the other to get it to where it's a smooth transition.
Make sure your spike's long enough to go all the way through the plywood, so as you're doing your wiring, you're snagging your skin.
Yeah,
all the time.
and you can bend it over on the bottom side.
What's the difference in nails between the two?
Between,
The cork
Track
nails
nails
and
and the cord.
these are like just your regular cheap 1/2-inch nails.
Wire nails, number 19s.
Yeah.
Track nails are the more expensive ones sold by various track makers. Yeah.
Now,
Uh-huh.
if you're going to use switch machines, such as tortoises or whatever you want to use to do an automated switch throw, you need to a lot for that before you mount your switches down. It can be done afterwards, but you're gonna have to come up on the side over here and not have it hidden underneath your turnout. If you do it prior to, and you can do this, and if you never even put them in later on, that's fine too, but at least they're there and ready in case you do. So if you come along, and what I'll do is I'll cut them about a gap here. It's hard to see when, after it goes back together.
so that'd be for the,
And that would be for your, that would be for your wire, for your switch machine to come up through.
Now, there's one way. Doing it this way, for me, when I do my 3/8 drill bit and 3/8 drill bit, all that wood comes up and it gets up under the cork, and it's hard to get out from under the cork, and you got this little bump right there. I'll drill the hole. I know where my throw bar is going to be. Drill the hole first before the cork's in place. Drill the 2 holes.
Hit it with a block sander.
And there's an hourglass kind of shape where the 2 holes were drilled. Well, you can take the drill bit and just kind of water it around in there and take out that hourglass and get it like that. Now you got your hole. When you put that first cork down, I can see half the hole. I can take my knife and cut that half of the cork. Now I've got a hole here, and then I put the other cork next to it. I got half a hole. Now I can do the other half of the hole. Now I got a whole hole.
I would have done that, except for I was just thinking about laying cork, and it was one of those afterthoughts.
But yes, I've went ahead in my layout, and everywhere there's a turnout, I've already pre-drilled for the option of a tortoise. Whether it gets it or not, but the option is there.
So how big a hole do you have to drill with size drill?
I think it's like 3/8, but I've done bigger. But 3/8 or a quarter. Quarter don't sound big enough.
No.
Yeah. Whatever it takes, my jigsaw blade is. I think 3/8 you can get a solid jigsaw blade in there and square it off if you want to.
One thing you can do is use one of those router plates where you can, it cuts
Yeah.
along the side.
Yeah.
Just drill a hole and take your cut blade down in there and it's done.
Now pay attention, see how he's got his court going in the two different routes? That's, keep going.
Okay. This would be a longer piece, but I'm just using this to conserve. Safety guys here. Can't do that. And this blade. This is really easier to do when you got a sharp blade.
Where's the court knife? It's labeled court.
I don't know.
I have probably 5 utility knives around the bench, and one of them has a piece of tape that's labeled court. So it's not used for cutting nails, it's not used for cutting cross ties, it's not used for cutting wood or sharpening or whatever. It's just dedicated for court. That way the blade lasts longer. So,
And then this one here, I would come in. Once I get this first piece in here, which would continue on out this way. Like so. Then I'd come back in here like this. Come in and do this side. And the easiest way for me to do it is, rather than trying to figure out the bevel and everything else, is I'll just come along here on the inside and I'll cut that beveled edge off. Try to do it straight. And I come in here on this side. I know I'm touching here, so just kind of cut this
One of
beveled
the
edge.
neat things about this, guys, while you're doing this, is you've got a little space in between your cord. Don't worry about it, because the balance is going to put it up in, so you'll never see it.
I mean, we're not trying to do a Mona Lisa or anything here. And there's a lot of flexibility with all this. A lot of give and take. Oops, that just broke off. Oh well, okay. We're still good.
The battles.
We're just trying to support the turnout here.
And you can see here, I'll leave that for a bit down the end. And you can see there, this would come along here like that. And that would come along there. You got a little bit of a gap there, a little hole right there. If you wanted to, you could fill it up, but it don't matter. By the time you put the turnout on there, yeah, you use a little bit of ballast in that hole, but in the grand scheme of things, that's how I do my turnouts.
okay, that's
And there's a reason why I do that this way. Because when I go in there and do the support, this is one full piece, continuous piece. This is a continuous piece. So now you've got side supports for your whole turnout. Everything else in the middle is just center support there to hold it up. That's the way I like to do it.
How do you get the cork with the nail pre-inserted?
It's available at Hobbytown.
Right answer. What are the likelihood of a track nail hitting a cork nail?
A track nail hitting a cork nail?
Yeah.
Shouldn't be ever. Because your cork nails are out, your track nails are in the center.
Yeah, right.
you got 2 different center lines going on.
That's right.
Yeah,
There are certain circumstances where if you're doing the track work and say you need to come back and add, for some reason it's got a weird form to it, if you're doing manufacturer switches or whatever. I know some of these, especially Atlas switches, they'll have a hump to them. Sometimes you can take that out by drilling a hole here in the center and use a center punch to get down in between the rails and flatten that out. Some situations, you may have where it may have gotten damaged, snagged on a collar or a sleeve or something and snagged the rail for some weird reason or something along those lines. And you're wanting to hold that down because the rail, say you needed to do track spikes, rail spikes rather than the track nails. They're different.
Right.
So if you use the track spikes or the rail spikes, and you went in here to push down on the side, you're over here now, possibly where one of your nails would be. That's the only scenario I can see where you would have a conflict where the nail's on top of a nail.
And while I'm thinking about it, while I'm laying cork, I tug on the cork to stretch it. Because if it ever compresses, well, it's already stretched. So, well, it takes out, if I leave it like this and it wants to compress, stretching, it's already stretched. So stretching, it doesn't hurt. But if I'm already compressed and it compresses more, it's going to want to do this somewhere in between the nails. So I just give it a little tug, just kind of stretch it out. And it keeps it straight.
If you leave it relaxed and moisture or whatever changes in your room and it swells up, it's going to buckle because it has nowhere to go.
Okay. All right.
What you need?
Cork knife.
We don't have any more.
Yeah, we got cork. I got cork. All right. So here's the way Dave does it. Here's my throw bar, and it starts diverging about right here where this PC tie is. So right here, it diverges, and I got to catch up with this 2-inch side track. So I'm going to start here. There's my diverging, and I want to come out here to
2-inch.
Yeah, so something like that, and just draw a line here and there.
How'd you know where to draw that line?
He always knows where to draw the line.
So that will fit just like that, and bend it over, and that'll fill just like that. Now this is the raw piece. Is there another? Hand me another fresh strip. That's more of this with that raw edge. You can't really see. Give me your good side, the camera side. All right. So, yeah, when you've done about 80 turnouts, now it's a little late for that. And so there's 2 inches out there. So, and we'll tack this down. Yeah, after you've done about 80 turnouts, and you don't want to cut, fit, and cut and splice, I said there's got to be a better way. This is what I came up with. One more out here where you are. And well, we're gonna pull this up anyway, so we'll just leave it. All right, that's got that. Now for the inside piece, just take this. Okay. And I know that this doesn't have to come all the way to the center line. I just have to cover up that gap right there. So to that gap, and I'm going to take this ridge off up to about right here. So the ridge, that much ridge comes off. So I'll go from here. I'm going to come into it and just cut off the bevel. Cover up that, and then draw a line in here for this to sit in. Cut this out. That's all the scrap I've got. Fits right in just like that. That's all the scrap I got.
How expensive are the pre-made cork for turnouts?
Probably $8 or so, I think. The Midwest
Well, you're
pre-made.
talking about where you buy a piece of cork that's shaped already for
Yeah,
turnout.
yeah. And aren't they $8 or
Oh,
so?
you said 80 at first.
No.
$8.
Wow.
I'm guessing 8.
Now, when I had.
But I mean,
the-
if you've got 80 turnouts, that's quite a bit of money,
Yeah.
as opposed to just a little bit of
Just doing
scrap.
two.
You got to
10
buy
turnouts
the
is
cork
$80.
anyway. This you got on hand.
Yeah.
I ran into the issue that I had from somewhere, gotten a few pre-made turnouts, and I discovered they were thicker cork than the.
Yeah, they don't. The elevation isn't quite as thick as.
Well, it
There's
was
two
a
different
little-
thicknesses.
It was 2 different thicknesses, so
Yeah.
it was like a.
So, all right. So that's turnout. All right.
Right.
Everybody, any questions on turnout cork cut?
Could you use just sheet cork to do this? So just cut out the turnout?
If you can, yeah, but sheet cork's expensive. I'd rather save my sheet cork for yards, industries, buildings. I'd rather save my sheet cork and not.
Not for turnout pad.
Yeah, I did that in 3 minutes.
Now, you can go in and find online rolls of sheet cork. And I'm talking about rolls like they're, 30, 40, 50 foot long. They're gonna be 4 foot wide. But if you got a bandsaw, or even if you got a big table or big area where you can work it, you can roll that out and set it up and set you a jig up with a metal bar on it and cut your own cork. And that'll be cheaper than buying this Midwest cork or any other cork. And you can't, in Hobby Lobby or whatever you buy the sheet cork from, that's gonna be expensive.
Do you put the, for super elevation, underneath the cork or under the track? On a curve?
I've done it underneath the track itself. And everybody that I've watched does it underneath the track. They'll lay the cork out for your curve, and then depending on the sharpness of the curve. Now, you can do super elevated curves, and I'm just for me and my experiences with it, you can take your styrene and start off. If you're going to do, I think 30 thousandths of whatever is what we were using for our outside rail. Then you would drop it down to like a 10 thousandths or whatever coming off the straightaway. So basically, you don't wait to get to the curve before you tilt. You tilt, and then you go into the curve. And
But you build up though,
yeah, you do a 10, right before you do about this much of a section, right there before your tangent or your transition.
So you start
Just a little bit of a slight.
Okay.
So it's nothing extreme. You do a little bit of an angle, a little bit of a build for that super elevated curve, and then work it on around. And then when you start getting into the curve itself, you can add to and bring it around. So you can go like 10, 20, 30. So then that way, when you're into 30, you are already past your easement, and you're into the sharper part of the curve. The downside about doing that is operations themselves. Your train operations on your little layout here is not the same thing as real world out here with the weight. They bank the curves for banking the curves for higher speed. Your train could stringline because now you're on that curve and it's super elevated and it's wanting to lean in already. You hit a snag or whatever and all them cars are going to go right on the inside. So it can be done without having that happen, but I'm just saying though, you just got to be real careful about all that and be real finicky in setting all that in place. And that'd be one of those things that I would test before I ever put ballast on it.
Yeah, the other
Look at the
thing is, you
pliers
don't
at the
have to
bottom
go to
tray.
a 30.
Needle
You
nose.
can start out at a 2 and a 5, and then 7.5 and a 10, and it's still considered elevated, a curve, but you don't have an extreme elevation where you're gonna get in trouble.
Right, right. You can do just enough to make it tilt, just a little bit, just off kilter. So that way, when you look at it, you see it being angled, but it's not enough to disrupt anything as far as the function.
Save them nails, Dave.
Yes, sir.
Yep, you're gonna reuse them. And while he's doing that, I'm gonna set this up, and I'll tell you what, another pair of pliers, we can pull this up and get this out of the way for right now. And on my cork, usually putting nails in, depending on where it's at. On a straightaway, you can do one nail about every 5 to 6 inches is plenty good. Because even once you get through nailing your track down, you're still gonna come back and put ballast down. Well, when you put ballast down, you're gluing it all down. So if the cork's not going anywhere, why put 20,000 nails in it when half of that many will work? And this is just my way of doing things. You saw he has a different way of doing things. There's more than one way to skin a cat. The cat still gets skinned. Don't know what he did wrong. But these are free. Y'all are welcome to have one of these and take one of these home with you. They are courtesy of Georgia Department of Transportation.
Your tax dollars are good.
Cutting track, there's all kind of ways of cutting track. They have rail nippers. We got, you got two different ones here. One is for vertical cuts, and then this here would be for your sideways cuts. And these are neat. I haven't used them enough to get super good with them. And gaps in your rails can be okay, depending on where they're at. It's not the end of the world. The biggest thing you want to make sure of, I'm going to take my glasses off so I can see.
Hey, glasses.
When you're doing your rail cuts, in your putting track end to end, you're adding track. Just make sure that they're lined up with your rail joiners, and that your lengths are at the proper end, the proper lengths, just so they'll butt up against each other. You can do that with rail nippers, which for me has been hard to gauge how much is how much. I have used a Dremel tool for so long, and you can take a Dremel tool and just grind it basically just a little bit, like filing it down just ever so slightly to where you make your match where it needs to be. And in doing so, to me, you can do, I have more control over it that way than nip. Oh, that's too much. Now what do you do? Where if you're doing a cutoff wheel like this, you can use the side very gingerly and just grind off the end, and you can kind of keep just nipping at it till you massage it into place. And doing that, massaging things like that into place, I've gone and laid my main line before on a layout and didn't put any turnouts in. Came back and cut in where my turnouts were going to be. I knew where they were going to be at, and then dropped my turnouts in place. Slide the rail joiners out, soldered it in place. Good to go. That's just a little bit of finessing. You can't cut true perpendicular.
Show them with that one. No, that motor tool.
No,
Imagine a blade being,
this is a blade. You can't get down here, you're at an angle already, and I'm just now getting to it. So you're not gonna be able to cut straight and get a nice, true, straight cut.
yeah, and your bottom of the rail is gonna hit before the tops. You can't get them flush.
Depending on how you cut it.
If it's already mounted. Now, if you can
Yeah.
freehand
If
it
it's-
out here and cut it, yes.
Now,
If it's already- if it's mounted on-
if
if
it's
it's
already
mounted.
mounted, if it's already mounted, and say this is the track I want to remove, and it's mounted in here, and all this is supposedly one piece. If I'm going to come in here and cut this, if I cut like this, that means the piece that's going to stay, I've got an angle like this. If I come around like this and cut, now my rail top is out with the gap at the bottom. So that when I remove this, both of my cuts are like this on the end pieces here. So then when I come and put my new piece in, I can finagle this and get it to where it will touch. Then when I solder it, that solder's gonna fill the bottom part. We're not talking about a lot of that rail being missing, so it's not gonna affect your rail joiner. So when you put your rail joiner in there, it's gonna hold it all in line, and you just slide it over till that angle, when you cut it like that, it was at an angle. So now when you slide your other piece in, it's flat. So you get your top pieces to touch, solder it in, and you're good to go. Your angle is gonna be angled back away, leaving your top piece the closest to your next rail. So therefore you don't get the gaps.
A gap like this is better than a gap like
Yes. Now, if you want to run metal wheels and you like having the clickety clack sound a whole lot, yes, you can have the gap on top. But yeah, so in that regards, you can come back and cut in switches that were not there before. It's very easy. Once you do it once or twice, it ain't no more difficult than just regular laying track. Just always cut short compared to what you want to cut out. You can always come back and nibble out a little more along the way on both ends. You can't add it back.
Yeah.
Especially if you're trying to cut a specific piece. If you're trying to come back in and cut in for a turnout, make your mark, and just say, okay, that's where my end of my track is, so I'm gonna come in and cut on this side of that mark, and cut like that, so that way I can drop this in.
What's the saying? You can cut it off, but you can't cut it on.
It's a nice way of putting it.
It's only short on one end.
It's only short on one end.
Talk about fingers, are you, David?
Do what now?
You aren't talking about fingers. are you?
No. What made you think about that? Or now, if you've got the tool, and even this one here is oversized, you can get this attachment, and this will allow you to get perfectly perpendicular.
Well, close.
Yeah.
A lot closer.
Yeah.
You're gonna have a little bit, but your angle's not gonna be like this anymore. It's gonna be just a little bit like that. So it helps a lot.
It's marginal.
Yeah. So that's cutting in track. So I'm not gonna bother cleaning this. We're just gonna solder this. It'll all work.
Okay.
Close enough.
Now, you want
Plug me in over there.
you're plugged in. Oh, you want
Okay.
solder?
No, I got solder right here.
I mean, I was setting you up for cutting.
Oh, yeah, no, we're not gonna cut.
All right, you changed gears on me. All right, switch. It's not hot yet. Oh,
Is that
no.
flex connection from Harbor Freight, or is it Hobby Lobby? The flex cable on the Dremel?
I don't know if Hobby Lobby has just the attachment.
Hobby Lobby probably would have.
Check with Lowe's or Home Depot in their Dremel department,
Amazon has
or
it.
Amazon.
Yeah.
Yeah, have it shipped to your house.
Menards, probably.
Now, while he's doing that, when you've got two pieces and you're having to splice in a piece, what I was saying before, if you cut those solids across from those skips in your ties.
Like I just did right there. I cut that solid, the one that's the solid side. I came back and notched out, so now we can take.
You can compress the
slide the top
ties
back.
on both rails and get your rail joiner in there. And then you can just drop your piece in and slide your rail joiners back into position and slide your cross ties back up where they belong.
What are you doing, Darrin?
On the flex track, you got one side that's solid, which is your stationary rail. Come back and you just cut out one of the little gaps here.
The skips.
But cut it across from another skip. So that way it allows you to do.
You got two skips across from each
I
other
just did two
where you
of
can
those there, so
compress
that
the
way you can
ties.
move the ties around, slide them back and forth to get them out of your way, and then slide them back once.
You don't lose a tie. You're going to lose the tie at the ends. That's a given. But you want to save everything else.
What did I do with it?
Rail joiner? Is this?
Oh, yeah, there it is.
It may be advanced, but joining code 100 to 83 or something, the transition.
You can use, there's transition rail joiners.
Which I don't care for. I've done that before.
Yeah.
There are also short pieces of transition track that some companies
Yeah,
sell, like Pico.
That, I've used that. That works real well. But just make sure that you're allotting for wherever you're gonna place it at.
Right.
If you're doing, like, say, code 100 on your main line, and you're doing code 83 for your spurs and that kind of thing, when you do your transition, I did mine on an older layout. I did my transition coming off the turnout from the code 100 to 83, and then I had just barely enough room to flex it a little bit to run down the side of the building.
Yeah,
So just make sure that you account for distance spacing.
and Walters makes a transition track, but theirs are about 6 inches long, which
And you
makes
can use
them
that wood block over there on the top of
Less.
the rail when you go to solder it while it's molten.
easy.
Might need a track nail or two to hold it in place. Here's that. You don't need this. And this may be inconsequential. This little tool right here, when you go to put the nails in the track, and yeah, you can hold it and get it started. You can use pliers to get it started. And then, but if your nail is at a cant in any direction, it's going to pull that cross tie and pull your track this way, that way, to and fro. This little $2.98 nail holder, it's got 4 different holes. And that holds your nail. You lay it on the track, put it in the hole. It is perfectly vertical, and it'll stay there, and you can tap it in and get it started, and it will go in straight every time.
I've been holding it upside down the whole time.
Nails?
No, the holder. Yeah, the nails too.
And where do you get the nail holder?
Micro Mart used to have them, but I didn't see them online. They quit sending out their catalog, their printed catalog. This came from Kidder up in Canada, and it took about 6 weeks to get to me. And I think they were, I'm gonna say $3. I ordered 6 of them just to justify shipping. So if you want to buy one,
You got some extras on
Yours,
it.
and I gave you mine?
and yours is in my shirt pocket, and I was gonna give it. You were not at Mark's today, so.
Oh,
But it's in my shirt pocket to pass back to you. And the only way I could find them is I took a picture of it and got my wife to do a Google search on the picture, and she got a match for Kidder up
yeah,
in.
something I've been doing is I've got a plier made by Micromart that's designed for inserting spikes, but I use it for nails.
And that's what this blue handle thing was too. He's already put it up. It's for holding spikes, yeah.
Yeah, and so I just put track nails in it, and then just insert, it'll only, because of how it holds the nail, it will only hold it, it'll let you insert it down a certain depth.
To the last 1/8 of an inch or 1/16 of an inch.
Right, and then I go and nail the last
Yeah,
part in.
yeah.
Alright. Okay,
You're
we're
high.
cooking, we're cooking. Alright, good deal.
Put 2 nails to hold in place.
That might help.
I had 4 of them out for you.
I'm just gonna put these in here.
All right.
Can you move the solder roll out of the way so some people will?
It's 9:47, or 8:47.
Okay. This will get up to the end of it. All right.
We're gonna wrap this up.
Yeah. Will that clear your wood block? Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Sandy ply, Keith, sir? Is your plywood sandy ply?
Mine's not.
Mine's not.
Okay. Nice.
Mine is.
Is your plywood sandy?
This is flux, and you don't need to get crazy with it. And this is just a little bitty micro brush, and just rub a little bit on there.
Just a little pinch between your cheek and gum.
Yeah, just a little pinch between the chicken gum. I would strongly advise not eating this.
It's sticky.
Yeah. And
How
don't
do you
take-
know?
Don't ask.
The base better than looking for.
This is something that came with the little kit that I bought, which is the tip tenor. So when you first get it, you just kind of stick it in there like that, and I just kind of like wiggle it around a little bit. There you go, done. It's easy as that.
The advantage using that is that it doesn't have any lead in it, and so it doesn't create the lead oxide on the tip. It's just a.
I'm gonna try to do this so y'all can see this side right here, and if we have to, we can flip around so you can see me do the other side. Don't solder the inside. This is where your flanges are gonna be, and you can cause all kind of problems if you solder the inside here. Always solder on the outsides of your rail. With this here being a hot soldering iron, you can, when you hit that rail with this, that heat transfers very quickly, and it gets real hot real quick, and it will melt the solder for you. Some of these little pencil soldering sticks, they don't necessarily get that hot, and so therefore by the time it does get hot enough, your rail has gotten hot, and then your cross ties start warping and melting and all that kind of stuff. So with doing soldering, what you're trying to do is hit it, get it hot, melt the solder, and then cool off, let it back off of it. So it's got to be a wound bound kind of thing.
And it's best to let the solder cool naturally.
Before you handle it.
Well, but don't blow on it, don't fan it, just let it naturally.
And I'm not happy with that joint now. Right now, this joint right here, I can run my finger across the top of it. This rail over here sits higher than this one over here does. Now, if this was a layout, I'd be taking this apart and fixing that. I want my rails to be smooth. I want, when you run your finger across it, you can't tell there's a joint there.
You wouldn't.
More than likely, what's going on with this is since this was nipped with nippers, it's probably got some rail material burr on the bottom side of that rail, and it's holding it high, proud in that rail joint, to where the other side's not, it's sitting flat on the rail joint. So that's what's causing one side to sit high.
You wouldn't sand it or file it down?
No,
No, I would take the rail joiner off, I'd file the bottom of that rail down to get that rail to sit down flush where it's supposed to.
And when you dip it, it's good to go over it with a file to make sure everything's square and clean.
Yeah, deburr the bottom, deburr the top of the rail head, and I usually run in the flange part of the rail, the bottom of the foot.
webbing, yeah, the webbing, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't want to, 83, code 83 is different from code 100. If you ever looked at the way it was made, code 100 has a high top, thick rail, where code 83 looks more realistic of a real railroad rail. So if you start filing the top off of that, and over years of cleaning track and it keep rubbing away, you're gonna have just a vertical piece of metal there to ride on rather than being a top part of the rail.
No head.
Yeah, no head on the rail. And what I'll normally do is I'll put this iron right in the joint itself to heat up both pieces of material, of the
Both rails. Trying to hit
at the
both
same
rails.
time. Put just a little bit in there. With that flux. And there you go. That's all there is to it. Wham, bam, it's done.
Try with that wood block and see if it won't level
No,
out.
no, I'll push on it hard while I go in. It
Okay.
wouldn't change nothing. So it's just something in the rail.
Both of them,
Yeah, both of them are sitting high. And I nipped this one. I didn't touch this one. I nipped this one,
but you didn't file it.
but I didn't file it.
Okay.
And the same thing with this one over here. Do a rinse and repeat for this side.
Just keep this away from
There.
Remove that
But
dead block.
just demonstrate the wood block regardless, just when you get
This,
hot solder.
this is good too, if
Even if
you're-
they do match.
yeah, even if they do match, but using a wood block like this that's smooth, you can lay that on top of it as soon as you get through soldering it. You may have to hit it once just to kind of soften it and put the wood block on there. And what this wood block will do is you push down on it and it will align the tops of your rails for you. And that, I've noticed a lot of times if you're using sloppy rail joiners that aren't holding the rails tight and they got play in them and your rail's got a lot of this in it, using a wood block will help keep that squared up. You'll still need to make sure that the rail joiners line up left and right. That just takes care of the top.
David, can you move that block?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Everybody see now? Now you're gonna hit the joint right there.
That's it.
Put our little wire, little solder right there. As soon as it starts to melt, let it kind of run a little bit. Run it up this way, run it back this way.
The solder's gonna follow the heat. So,
And the flux does two things. One, it helps clean the rail a little bit, but it's kind of like adding alcohol to water. It helps it flow. It removes some of that tension, surface tension. So when you put the flux, and it doesn't take a lot of flux, just a little bit on there is all you need. And once you hit it on there and you get that little bit of bubble going on there, you run the heat out this way and kind of like push that solder out. And then when you bring it back, that solder will flow back with you and continue on the next joint, across the joint to the next rail, and give you a nice full solder joint. And doing a wire on the side is kind of the same way. You tin it, and you can come along here and you can use alligator clips. I've used them before. Sometimes with a wire coming up, you can kind of bend it to where it'll stay up against the rail, but sometimes it'll want to tweak away. And you can take a small alligator clip and put your wire up there, clip it on place, get your solder, remove your alligator clip.
just
and
go
you're
through
good to go.
just go through the motion of the wood block for the camera. So,
Put
you
your wood
just wanna
block on here.
Well, just get the solder molten, and then put your block on top of it while it's still molten, and then just kind of rub it back and forth, just kind of massage it, and then that way your rail heads are perfectly aligned, at least elevation wise.
And that would smooth out the joint.
Okay. Any questions? floor is open for about 3 more minutes.
You do S curves, do you split the rail in the middle of the S, or do you keep it one long piece?
Depends on how long your S-curve is.
Normally- normally my S-
You
yeah.
flip it?
On your S-curve, your floating rail is always gonna be on the inside of your curve. So in answer to your question, I guess, yes, you would flip it to.
I
to
do
the
a
other direction.
joint in the middle of the S curve.
Also too, if you're gonna do an S-curve, put you a straight section in between. Because you don't want, especially if you're running passenger cars and that kind of stuff, going from one curve to the other direction, the car in front of it, you're gonna start having this kind of operation going on. You gotta let them get straightened out, and then go to the next
It's
direction.
got to finish the left curve before it starts the right. You can't be in the left curve and do a right curve at the same time. It's not recommended.
Now, if you're doing 60-inch radius curves, you can get away with it, but normally doing anything,
Whatever your longest car or locomotive is, plus a little extra.
yeah.
Cars don't grab a pack.
All right, any other questions?
Thank you much.
Appreciate it.